So right here, I'm going to show you how to figure out the spacing for a board and batten wall. It's a very popular accent wall. Some people do just one wall. Some people install it on their hallways or entryways. Some people install it in an entire room. So it's a very popular wall. It's very nice. Now, the easiest way to install board and batten wall, it's basically just to install the battens. These are the battens right here, the ones, the vertical strips right here, and then the top horizontal board. Just install it directly on your drywall. Now, typically to do it with pine, you can do a 1x4, a 1x6. This is a 1x4, which is not technically, it's not exactly a 1x4. It's basically like a 2x4. It's really 3.5 inches wide. So like I said, the easiest way to do it is just to install it over the drywall. Now the thing is, you would see some of the, you will still see your texture of your wall. It doesn't look as clean as installing the board behind it. Now, like I said, if you want to have it nice and clean, you can do the board behind it, as we did on this side over here. Yeah, over here we did I put a 1/4 inch paneling behind a smooth paneling behind the board and batten. Now the only thing with that is you have to make sure that wherever the battens land, you want to make sure the seams end up behind the battens to hide the seams. You have to worry about filling those. So as you can see, you have one right here, and then you have one over here, and you have one over there. And so if you hide this, you can see where the boards are, and then you put the board and batten, it hides them basically. Now that's a lot cleaner. Like I said, you have your texture, you still see your texture right here. It looks nice and clean, nice and smooth. And if you were to paint it, see how that makes a huge difference. You have nice and smooth down here. Then you have, of course, you have your texture painted blue on top. Now let's go back to demonstration over here. Now as far as the height, I recommend about halfway or at least 4 feet from the ground. If you're doing anything about 10 feet or lower, if your ceiling's up to 10 feet, I would recommend about 4 feet. Especially if you have a light switch, I would do it right underneath the light switch. If you don't have a light switch, and you can do maybe 50, 52, 54 inches tall. Now, if you have a light switch and you want to go higher, then I recommend doing it as over here, right above the light switch. You can do it that way, still looks nice. This one is 5 feet tall, goes right, clears the light switch. Now, if you want to go higher than that, then I do recommend adding another horizontal board across. As you can see, still looks nice setup. Now you don't have them really long. You have something to break it apart. It looks really nice. This one is this one I took off all the seams from this one. Just know that the more battens you add, the more seams you have, the more you're gonna have to fill, the more prep work. So that it gets quite a bit of prep work when it gets to this many boards and battens or battens. Now let's go back over here. Now let's figure out the spacing for the board and batten wall. This is a 12-foot wall, 12 foot, 144 inches wide. The wall, 9 feet tall. So to figure out the spacing, basically you're going to grab the total width of the wall in inches, which is 144, and then you're going to minus the total number of inches added together of the battens. So basically, right here you have 9 battens. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You have 9 battens. Each are 3.5 inches wide, as mentioned earlier. So 9 by 3 is 31.5 inches. So you're gonna have 144 minus 31.5. So you're going to end up with 112.5 inches that are remaining of your spacing. You're going to grab 112.5 and you're going to divide that by the number of spaces. Now, keep in mind is that whatever the number of battens there are, if you're doing just one wall, typically, if your number of battens, because you're going to add a batten at each end to look nice and clean, it's going to be the number of spaces is going to be one less. So if you have 9 battens, you have 9 here, your spacing is going to be one less, which is 8. If you have 8 battens, your spacing is going to be 7. If you have 7 battens, your spacing is going to be 6. So right here we have 112.5. So let's start over real quick. So we have 144 inches, and we deduct the total if you add all the battens together, which is 31.5, that equals 112.5, and you divide that by the number of spaces. So you divide that by, basically break it into 8, divided by 8, that's 14.06. So as you can see right here, 14.06. Actually, let's do this. Now that's the spacing of the in between the battens. Now I typically recommend the battens to be no less than, the spacing between the battens no less than 12 inches and no more than 20 inches. Now this one I still think is a little too many battens. I like to do a little less. As over here, you can see, it looks nicer. We did one less batten and one less space. Same setup over here, same math involved over here. So you have 144 inches because this wall is 144. It's the same. So you want to grab 144, and then you want to, now this one we're doing 8 battens as opposed to 7. I mean, as opposed to 9 like the other one. So what we do is you want to do 8 battens times 3.5, and the spacing still the same of the battens, and that's 21 inches. So if you add all the battens together, you get 21 inches. You get the wall, you minus that, and then that leaves you with 116. Now you get the 116 and you divide it by 7. Remember, you divide it by the number of spaces, which is always one less than the total number of battens. So you have 8 battens, you have 7 spaces. So 116, you divide it by 7, that's 16 and 5, 16.57. As you can see over here, 16.57. Now, of course, you can go wider than that, but I don't really recommend much wider than that. You're probably gonna end up with like 18 or 9 inches. If this wall were much bigger, probably looks okay. But I think that's a good that's a good spot for that. Now, if you're going to add, if you're going to do a full room with the board and batten, then I do recommend one thing, and it gets a little more complicated, but just show you real quick on the corners. Now, if I were to hide this one, of course, it's just like the other wall. It's the same width of the wall. It's 12 feet, or 144 inches. Of course, these are always 3.5 inches wide. Now, once you add another board here, if you were to add a full board here, a 3.5 inch board, this one's gonna, because it's gonna cover part of it. This board is 1/2 inch thick. So if you add a board there, it's gonna be, if you add a board here, this is gonna be 3 inches, right? So what I like to do is I like to make sure that this is the same width. So once you add this board in the corner, if this one's 3.5, you minus the thickness, that'd be 3 inches. And you want to make this one the same, so they're both even. That's basically the same thing all around. You want to make sure they're even wherever there's 2 battens at the end.